Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, hear from Dylan about corn quality and germs coming out of total seed production for the 2026 season. Ben shares data on Meristem's Excavator AMS product and impact on nutrients. And stick around for the corny jokes.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have our regulars, Ben, Dylan, and Lynn. And sounds like, Dylan, you got the first up.
Yeah, so TSP has been working on a lot of our corn hybrids, and they're moving through them pretty quick. Our conventionals have been packaged, so I mean we've gotten germs and kind of a quality back on those, and they've come back extremely strong. We're still waiting on our saturated colds, but we have our warm germs, and out of the 2512C-0, our conventional line, we did not get anything lower than a 97 on the warm germ. So that's extremely well. Once we get saturated colds back too on some of these lots, so we'll definitely share them. But we know how important kind of saturated colds too are on how maybe early we can push it in the spring and how well they can handle those cooler temperatures when we have those fluctuations in the spring. And then on some of our older hybrids we've had in the past, we've gotten really good germs back on those.
The carryover.
Carryover germs.
We maintain in cold storage 50-50. And I don't know if a lot of folks don't know that most seed corn companies carry over a certain portion of their crop supply as an insurance policy to make sure they have supply for you the following year. And you can maintain germinations in a 50-50 environment, 50 degrees, 50% humidity for many, many years. And it's the very, very best way to store corn. And we have the latest and greatest cold storage building that the industry can design. So we always intend to make sure we're a dependable supplier by keeping back a little bit of our corn for the following year. And last year was a wonderful production year. So I saw some of the re-germs, and some of them were 100%.
Yeah, so actually there's quite a few lots that came back better re-germ than they did out of the production plant last year. So there's we had a 2413 lot that was a 97 the year before out of production. This year it was 100% and had a 99% saturated cold that came with it. So
and just to clarify, the cold test, there's a standard cold test and then there's a saturated cold test. Saturated cold test is the very, very toughest test out there. The standard cold test in the industry, 82 is considered acceptable. In other words, you don't want to see anything lower than 82 for a high quality seed lot. So when you get something in the 90s with saturated cold, which is a tougher test and even a higher germ, that means we're putting out seed that's going to come up very uniform, theoretically. I mean, it's within the ability of our human way that we can test. So we feel real comfortable about our seed quality on corn, and we're striving to put the very, very best product out there. And then, Ben, you put a seed treatment on it that's unlike anything that's out there. And in fact, one of the components actually helps it in cold conditions. It helps in the toughest conditions that you can do. So I don't know what more we could add to make it better.
Yeah, and it's been all grades, small platelets, medium platelets, large platelets, even our flats and rounds in our new production. Everything's been coming back exceptionally well on germ. It doesn't seem to matter whether the size or the grade on that side. So it's really good quality, so shipping can let loose.
Yeah, and so, again, you're not going to see most of your seed companies out there talk about. I know one other company that maybe talks about quality, but for the most part, the industry doesn't talk about it. And so anyhow, we're sharing a little bit what's behind the curtain, and to let you know that you can feel confident planting Merschman corn this year.
There is one test that's a little bit harder than the saturated cold, and that's the saturated cold 40 test that Sodak offers, the company that does our testing. So we're going to send some lots in and see what that 40 degree soil temp tests look like on our corn, because I think that is the toughest, but not a lot of people go out and plan on planting their corn in 40 degree weather either.
Nor should they.
Yeah.
And there is difference in vigor between corn hybrids. The 111 day that we have is the very strongest product that you could plant first, because it has, not only does it have good germs, but it also has good vigor. In other words, it's more likely to give you the very, very best stand if you're out planting when temperatures are a little bit below 50, but rising.
Yep. Yep. It's one of the fastest products out of the ground.
So
it's fun to watch because it's usually a day or two faster than the competition or even some of our other products that we have in the lineup.
So, the takeaway today is if you like to plant early and you want to plant a field early, like a lot of farmers like do, like get that planter in tip-top shape, plant the 111 day first.
I know we've talked about it before, but just for, like I said, clarification on why we do this that maybe some companies don't do, is because we want to be able to, like I said, either tell a grower that, hey, this one has a good germ, but maybe the cold germ's not, so that one's the last one you need to plant. Greg Sauter with Yield 360 does it on his, because there was one time that he didn't do it and planted a competitive hybrid first during a rather less than ideal situation, and it really killed the germination and the stand on his corn. So by rule, obviously we do it, but even if you're planting a competitor's and you're someone that likes to push the envelope, it's a relatively inexpensive test to do to make sure that you are, because you could have really good quality corn and really good yielding hybrid, but if you don't have that saturated cold germ in your back pocket to know how to plan, could be setting yourself up for a very difficult situation. We do it that way we can prepare not only ourselves but our growers to be in a situation where we're confident that, more so in the sense that if, right now we really push the envelope in that 50 degree and rising. As we know, sometimes when we're in those situations, we might have a spell, and we've had it the last 3 years, where there's a 5-day window or a 3-day window on the forecast that looked really, really good, that we're going to be in that minute that planter hit the dirt, temperature changed, and we're in the 45s and kind of stayed stagnant. In those situations, we feel really confident that we're going to be able to overcome that minute inconvenience without sacrificing stand count.
Yeah, we're starting to, it's like super fine tune. I mean, reality, corn grows, almost all corn hybrids germ quite well as a general rule, unless they're subjected to a huge amount of heat and humidity, and for some reason. But we're just trying to give you every advantage that we possibly can. So we pay close attention to it because, well, you guys all farm, and when you go out there, a bag of corn is not a cheap date. You want the very, very best performance that you can get, so we pay attention to it. And we talk about it, which some companies don't. So keep that inventory fresh, keep it turned over, get the best quality seed that we can get you, and that's what we've been doing for years.
One of the things that I had on my docket for today is I've been at a handful of post-harvest grower meetings over the past week and a half here, and one of the common themes of what I'm hearing is we're either seeing a reduction in the amount of phosphate that is put down, or all fertilizer in general this fall, or potash to some extent as well, but with the commodity price not being in the super profitable levels as what they were 3 or 4 years ago, guys are really pinching their pennies and pulling things back. And I wanted to talk about a product from that Meristem offers, that our dealers can offer, our growers. That's called their Excavator AMS Cycle Strike, and that is their standard package now, because Excavator has made 3 different leaps in their different technologies, as from a product from, I think it's probably a 4-year-old product. Every year it gets something added to it to make it an even more effective product. And why I'm talking about fertilizer and a stock residue breakdown product is there is some nutritional value that can be gleaned using this style of product, because Meristem has done the testing on it, and I'm going to share some slides with you and kind of talk through some things and some of the advantages that you get with a residue breakdown product, either applied this fall or early enough in the spring where the temperatures are warming up and we can get some of this stock residue breakdown. I've heard from a ton of people that this year there has been a bunch of trash residue coming off of corn stalks, and even in the soybean side we've had a handful of locations, areas where the soybeans were down. And that residue is something that we're going to want to pay really close attention to going into the spring because of the carbon penalty, the nitrogen tie-up that happens when you get these reduced till, no-till style of situations, because there was a lot of acres this past year that the beans got about 3 or 4 inches tall and then just stalled out because we were dealing with the residue from the previous season and slowing things down. The headers get bigger on combines when it comes to soybeans. You're seeing a lot more 35, 40-foot headers. You're seeing a lot of trash in those down beam areas where you're getting a lot of trash spread, residue spread in a 10-foot area or a 15-foot area, and you're not evenly getting it spread across that 35 or 40 feet. And there are ways that we can combat that and get around that and get ahead of it by using excavator or residue breakdown style products.
So basically all you're doing is speeding up the release of the nutrients that are left over after the crop, right?
Yep.
And so the faster you can do that, the sooner your plant can take advantage of it, rather than taking, which could be maybe up to a year for some of this stuff to release, maybe?
It could release, but a lot of the time when it comes to these potassium, phosphate, nitrogen release cycles, if we don't have a microbe involved that is breaking them down quicker, we are missing our peak release time of the phosphate, potassium, and nitrogen. So when we look at peak timing, and we'll put some slides up here in a minute talking about when the release happens, whether it be a fall application or a spring application of this microbiology that helps digest these products down, it's speeding up the release time that hits when that either corn crop or soybean crop is in peak demand for that nutrition.
And it's putting it in the best crop available for them as well.
Correct. And usually it can catch a free ride. So it's not one of those things where you're going to have an extra $8 an acre application fee with it, because the guys that put it down in the fall, a lot of them will put it down with a fall herbicide, so it's catching a free ride with the herbicide, or the herbicide's catching a free ride with your stock degradation product. The first slide that I wanted to show is the picture of the stalks here. This is from last year's data. This was applied November 15th, and the stalks were collected December 10th. So we're kind of in that, we're a little bit past the 15th of November, but we're kind of in that same time frame where it's pretty impressive yet to get this kind of degradation when we are looking at a late cooler applied time of year. So it's not too late to get some of this stuff done this fall. You have the untreated on the left. You have the standard excavator, which is it comes in 2x2.5. It's a liquid product, or you can get it in 250-gallon drums. This is the first iteration of what excavator can do, and you can see the piths are starting to break down. You're seeing a difference in the quality of what it looks like for that pith and how fast the nutrients are going to be released back down, or how easily you can get through the trash. The next generation of excavator, they added a food source. They put AMS in and a surfactant in with the excavator. So on the second iteration of excavator, you can see even faster breakdown. The AMS actually acts as a food source for the bacillus bacteria that are in the jug. So if you feed them, you can make them multiply faster. They're stronger in survival. There's less environmental inconsistencies that can happen when you put a food source mixed in with your biological product. And then the last iteration, the most new iteration of Excavator AMS Cycle Strike, and it actually has bio up in it now. So every package that you get has a conditioning agent for the water to make sure that we're not ruining some of this live microbes that are in the jug. But the Excavator AMS Cycle Strike, Cycle Strike is 2 different strains of fungus that will, if you put them in solution, in almost any solution, they only survive for 24 hours. So they have a capsule that is built on top of this 2x2.5 that you plunge the capsule, puts these dry fungus microbes in the 2x2.5. You mix those up, shake the jugs up, you get them added to the system, and what those 2 fungal microbes do is they work really, really hard at digesting the stalks, and it's a clear difference. I mean, when you can turn the rind black, you can turn the pits black really quickly. It's just a great testament to the advancement that some of these stalk breakdown products are making, and some of the innovative ways that Meristem is using delivery technology to get around the sensitivity of some of these microbes. So I'm pretty stoked up about this. We've sold quite a bit of Excavator AMS Cycle Strike this year. You can get it in, like I said, 2x2.5, so you can get it in 250-gallon totes. It's a quart per use rate, but there's so many more advantages than just being able to get the planter through and not deal with the trash and not deal with the carbon tie-up. I like the product. We're going to move on to the next slide. This is a slide of a corn field and a soybean field with and without treated, and you can see the growth differences when you're looking at the two different sides. So you're going to get faster canopy closure because you're getting more heat off of the soil. So that faster canopy closure helps us with weed control. It helps us speeding along the different growth stages in the corn and soybean. So when we can get through growth stages faster, it has a tendency to be less of a yield penalty. I was listening to Ken Ferry from last week's episode. He was talking, actually it was last summer's YouTube video. He was talking about how beans that don't have a carbon penalty can be a half a node to a node further ahead. What that means is, each node's worth about 3 to 4 bushel. You can tack 3 bushel on just from getting that bean to progress faster along and not stay in the carbon tie-up penalty quite as long. So what I also think about when I think about this, and I have a couple guys trying it in southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois this year, is if we can get that trash, we can get that residue removed, we now have another mode of action on trying to combat white mold. So these guys were super stoked to try it because they've just really been fighting the white mold, and they're going to go out there with Excavator. They already have done it, and they're trying to eliminate the residue, get rid of the environment that the white mold is present in, because there's just such small incremental changes in that microclimate from a humidity standpoint and a temperature standpoint that causes the white mold to take off. That by reducing the amount of residue there, you can reduce the amount of humidity and you can reduce the amount of white mold that happens.
Will it break down the sclerotinia, the white mold, actual overwintering fungus, the Excavator?
I don't think they have anything on the label, but anecdotally, I think it has more to do with the environment, getting rid of the environment, than it does actually breaking the carbon-based white mold down. But that's just my assumption, my theory, my guess.
When we look at corn on corn with the homegrown tar spot, though, there's definitely some anecdotal evidence there to you get rid of the host and you get rid of the disease pressure, or reduce the host, reduce the disease pressure.
Yep. I think of tar spot, I think of northern corn leaf blight, I think of gray leaf spot, I think of all of these different diseases that if we're reducing the inoculum, we're not tilling the soil. For the guys that want to stay in their no-till programs, you're speeding this whole process up. And what Meristem spends the most amount of time talking about is the nutrient release, and we haven't even got to that part of it yet. So I have the first slide here is Excavator's impact on the available potassium, and they did this study last year, and what you're looking at is the red line is the average pounds per acre in a non-treated field. So you can see that we're starting out, the non-treated has higher levels of potassium in the beginning part of the season. And this instance where they talk sampling time on the bottom and your x-axis, you see an inversion where the treated actually will start to release more potassium at the critical time. And I don't know why I must have messed up printing this off, but that critical time frame is the rapid growth syndrome in corn and soybeans, when you're pulling in more pounds of potassium per day. The band, I guess, is what I'm getting at, is extremely high right prior to reproductive stages, or at the very beginning portions of reproductive stages. So you're actually getting a 20 pound per acre, 23 pound per acre increase in the available potassium. We know a lot of our soil tests that we look at, potassium is one of the most limiting factors. We struggle to get potassium built up with the yields that we're pulling off. So that is key. And the potassium that is being uptaken by the plant is, I believe it's in a slide from Fred Below, from products that have residue breakdown. That potassium, that organic form of potassium, is 3 times more effective going into that plant and getting used by that plant than a synthetic style of potassium that we typically would look at as potash, trying to get taken into the plant. Potassium's not it. Phosphate is the next one. Almost all year long, you can see that there's a higher amount of phosphate available to that plant. Not as quite as much of a efficiency from an organic perspective, but phosphate is obviously important. And if you're looking at that peak time frame, you're looking at somewhere around 20 more pounds of phosphate per acre available. Nitrogen, you're seeing similar things in the nitrogen, 20 some pounds of more available nitrogen, depending on when we are going through the rapid growth and getting into pollination time frame. We know how important making sure that plant never has a need is important. So when we look at the peak time frame and you look at the total nutrient analysis summary from a dollars per acre standpoint, the studies that they showed talked about a $28 per acre advantage in peak season time frame to having the excavator and the nutrients in the organic form to go into the plant. So there's a lot of advantages. I think they're doing a really good job with the residue management. From a mechanical standpoint, they're doing a really good job getting rid of the disease factors that can come in and year out, and they're also turning that trash in a year where fertilizer prices are so expensive into a commodity for you to help you keep moving things along. And that $20 per acre more than pays for what the application does, plus you have more advantages from a yield standpoint and other things. So I'll put a slide up for there's a Pleasant Plains test plot that is a 40-year corn-on-corn test plot where they have multiple different styles of tillage systems, and every time that excavator was incorporated into this field, there was a positive return on investment. So I can have that slide up as well.
Yeah, and these numbers we're getting it's third-party verified data. Fred Beal at University of Illinois and Connor Sybil have done a lot of work in this, so it's not just a marketing perspective. It is actual verified data that's coming from a third-party source, a very respected third-party source at that. When it comes to the University of Illinois and the study that they're doing biologicals, I think when we think about this stuff, the one of the issues that we're running into, especially with the guys in no-till, minimum till, as these twofold, as we're advancing our genetic potential in these corn hybrids, some of the unintended consequences are the lignin content in corn seems to be getting a little bit more. It's harder for that natural breakdown. We've reduced our, and a lot of folks are reducing their nitrogen use. And then I've got a couple of them I've just talked to in the last week that reducing their nitrogen use, but they're carrying over 25 pounds of nitrogen. And well, part of that, I think what has happened is that breakdown that you're talking about and getting that nitrogen is happening after that crop is either hit black layer or post-senescence, and the soil is still holding on to it, but it provided no value for the crop. Now, hopefully next year that, we'll get a little bit out of that, but it would be really nice to get that into that, back into that yield curve, and we can continue to see, our nitrogen use efficiency get into the 0.55, 0.6 that some of these guys are into, and I think not the secret sauce, but it is definitely a component to the success that they've had in getting into 300 bushel corn on 180 pounds of nitrogen is using a systems approach to utilize everything in their perspective there with organic matter and the use of the breakdown products to return that fertility back to the plant.
I believe that this data that I'm sharing for you for last year is not the cycle strike either.
I believe you're correct.
I think that is, it's just the Excavator AMS that has the microbializal technology in it, which just means it has a very, very strong surfactant in it. So you can pull surfactant out as well. So you have the surfactant in, you have your AMS in. Those both will work for conditioning your water. They will help your herbicides work better. They'll help your insecticides work better if that's something that you're adding into the system. So it's a take cost out from multiple perspectives. So
the cool part about this is, in working with Meristem, I think, if I remember correctly, on the cycle strike, it's a biodegradable component that was used as a degreaser style product. So the folks
something that BP used for oil spills
and all that. So they would put it on the beaches to help get rid of the oil that washed up on shore. So it's a biodegradable product that had a utility in a different industry that we're now bringing into the ag spectrum, and I think that's very interesting because it adds potential for unlocking a whole portfolio of more add-ons that they're finding. And when there's more demands for stuff, there's greater supply potential, and that helps to get that cost position in a really good spot there.
Yeah, because what is oil? Carbon. What are we trying to break down? Carbon.
Yep, exactly.
Makes sense.
Science.
It's science. You're a tool.
Didn't know you guys were such nerds. Anything else?
We're good.
Good. Well, we'll attempt some jokes today, okay? Speaking of BP, that led right into my first joke. Where do bees go to the toilet? BP station.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That was 100% unintentional, too.
You guys coordinated with me, didn't know it. Why does Humpty Dumpty love autumn? Do you ever think about that? I'm sure you do. Because Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. That's why. Okay. And then the last one's a little bit of philosophy, Doesn't matter if you're tall or short, thin or fat, rich or poor. At the end of the day, it's night. That's stupid. Anyhow, thanks for watching this week. We hope harvest is wrapping up for you, if not completely finished. I know the folks in the southern part of our territories were wrapping things up, and a lot of things to get ready for next spring, and one of them is order your seed. And we appreciate talking to your local Merschman seed dealer and getting that done before Thanksgiving, and we'll get it produced and shipped and there on time so you can raise these high yields. Again, hope your family's safe and healthy. See you next week.